I've never won any awards for photography, so I would love to know what it was like to win an Australian Geographic Nature Photographer of the Year award, especially at such a young age. What did that feel like for you?
I don't think I fully fathomed the fact that I even won it. I think it took about 2 years for me to process the fact that, oh, wait, hang on a minute. And it's something that it's crazy that I could like stand there and read the email and be like, wait, that's my name. I'm not I wasn't just a finalist, it was something a little bit more. It's like, hey, you're gonna win. I think I ran to my mother at the time. I was 17 and I was like, Mom, hang on. Am I reading this right? Have I gotten something wrong here? And it was just this moment of like, oh, I had entered that competition, the Australian Geo Photography Comp, for about 3 years, and that was my third year. I'd been finalist for the other two, so I just kind of assumed, okay, this will be another finalist year. I'll go down to Adelaide, I'll see the exhibition, I'll meet all these really cool photographers and call it a day. But when I got that email, it was about a week prior. And I think that entire week I was beaming. You could see sunshine coming out of my eyes. I was like, but I couldn't tell anyone still. It was still quiet. So I was very, very excited as a 17-year-old then.
Is it weird to hear that you'd won an award over the email? Like, rather than, I can imagine you'd be like, is this real? But also like you were saying, like you can't really tell anyone about it.
Yeah, no, it's like you're sworn to secrecy, but you want to tell all my friends, all my family, everything. And it was just mum and I that knew at the time. So I was like, my best friends kept asking me, why are you so excited right now? I'm like, just wait one more week.
As you look back, was there anything that you'd sort of changed or implemented from the years prior to update your images or your application that you think helped you become successful in that year?
Yeah, I think I had this habit of going out every single morning. I would sort of wake up early before the sun rose, and that's when bugs in particular are super duper quiet and they're still cold and they haven't warmed up quite yet. So that's when you can usually get your best photos. And that habit of going out day to day to day, you can't pick and choose what you're going to see. It's just sort of, you go outside, you just take yourself out there, and that's the best that you can do because you can't plan, you can't tell a bug, hey, can you please land on this flower at this time? Just the lighting just can be right behind you, perfectly backlit, or maybe over here. You can't do that to bugs. They don't listen. And I think it was that year that I just kept going, and it was during COVID when I took that photo. I think my mum grabbed me from the kitchen and she's like, hey, I think I see a burrow. And so every single day following that, I'd go to that burrow and it was the spider's nest. And I'd be like, oh, maybe there's something inside. But nothing. I'd go out again. Still nothing. Until that one time where this mother spider had perched herself right outside the den. And as I got a little bit closer because I'm like, no way, there's a spider in there. Hang on a minute. And she had this ball of babies on her back. And as I just got a little bit too close to even simply look, the ball of babies and spiderlings just dispersed everywhere. And I was like, wait, no, that could be a really cool photo. And I was just in the moment so much because I was so excited. I quickly got my camera and I took a photo. And she was just stood there. And she became, she went from a mother in my eyes to protecting her babies. Whereas if you're looking at that photo in particular, you kind of think like, oh, this is a really scary spider and it's ready to attack me. But no, she's really just a mum looking out for her bubs that are all scurrying back into the den.
It's interesting to hear you speak about it because, you can hear how much you really care about what you're taking photos of. Like for a lot of other people, they could walk past that and not even see that as a moment worth capturing. But for you, like you've been there day after day, turned up a lot and kind of understood what was happening. How do you get into that place of going back out again and again to really capture these like moments that, as you said, you can't plan for?
Yeah, totally. I think I've gone through seasons of my life where I'll go out morning to morning and you build up relationships. It sounds ridiculous, but you build relationships with these bugs because you realize, there's a family that might be on this tree or on that leaf, or there's a nest that's being built there. And you kind of just innately learn the patterns of your subject. And you've been like, okay, this is the behavior. And something in particular, my favorite species to photograph are jumping spiders, because I always say that they wear their hearts on their sleeves. You can see when they tilt their head that they're curious or that they might want to jump at you, but you build that relationship because they don't trust you at the start. But then when they do jump on you, you've really sort of like, they think that you're fine. And there's just things like that that really sort of pursue me to go out again, because if you don't go out, you don't know. You don't learn. You don't know the behaviors of anything. So just being outside and spending that time to put aside the super busy world that we live in that is constantly going on, even just in our phones, putting that aside and spending a couple hours outside just has been absolutely life-changing, and it's brought me closer to photography.
No one else could take that image because no one else would be prepared to go out every single day and understand the habits of these creatures that you're taking photos of. And I think it's one of the biggest things with a lot of photography changes in the world. A lot of AI is starting to come into the space at the moment as well, that just a lot of these images have no heart because people don't there's no connection of what's actually happening there. You've actually gone out and you're studying these creatures to know how they behave. So there's a lot more emotion behind your images.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's the one thing with photography is it's all about patience. I have sat in front of that den or a bunch of flowers for hours just trying to get a bee in flight at just the right focus. And you've got such a shallow depth that you just need to be in it perfectly. And I think I did a statistic and I've taken over 400,000 shutters just based on being on burst and quickly taking something of a bee flying past. But realistically, I might only have 1,000 photos in my portfolio. And so the ratio is huge, but it takes that because you never know that might just be the shot at the right time, at the right moment.
I don't know if I could be that person who would go out there every day and do that type of work. And I've always said, I love working with humans because I can tell them what to do and how to stand. But anyone that works anything in the environment, in nature, doesn't hear you. You can't talk to it. You can't tell it what to do. And so turning up every single day, that's definitely a commitment. For anyone that's, looking to get into your style of photography, what do you think is some of the things that they probably need to learn or be aware of that from the outside we don't realize?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I always say is you just have to be paying attention. You have to always look. I have this saying, you have to look and look until you start seeing, because you can see a bush, but it's not until you really sit there and look at it for long enough that you realize that there might be 20 insects right there in front of you. It's this observing balance, but then also being able to know your level of photography and settings to quickly react. Because ideally, I'm someone who doesn't use any artificial light or autofocus. I'm very much a very at the ground level. I just want to have a camera in my hand and have control of everything. And so I very quickly see a bug, which is usually more often than not in the worst lighting position ever. And it really sucks. But then you have to problem solve in that moment before the butterfly runs away or the grasshopper decides no, you're too close. I'm getting out of here, and jumps away. You have to, get up, get low, get high, be upside down. I have been balancing off a cliff sometimes, just trying to take a photo of a lizard or something. You have to kind of be able to get dirty. And if you're taking photos of bugs and you're out in nature, you can't be scared of getting a little bit of dirt on you, because then that happens to be the classic saying of like, get eye level with the animals that you're taking photos of. With bugs, it's often on the ground.
What's the strangest place you've ever taken photos in?
This is the most mundane, but also the most riveting. It was my kitchen, in the sense of, yes, there's food everywhere, so you might, if you're unclean, you might see a bug or two, but the fact that you can be inside and bugs are still all over. Even if you're not a bug person, I'm sorry. You didn't hear that. But, you might have a jumping spider. My favorite is I'll often see a jumping spider on my wall or at my friend's house. And I'll suddenly, you don't really want to move them because they often have a home and have building a nest or something or other. They've called your home too. And you just learn to coexist. If it's a huntsman though, I will let it coexist on the other side of my house. And hopefully not let it in my room. That's my limit.
I have a very big American audience, or North American audience. And the biggest thing I always get people ask is they're like, I don't know how you can be in Australia with all the spiders that are inside your house all the time. I'm like, look, they're not harmful. And if they are there, it's not every day. If someone wanted to go up and take photos of spiders close up, how do you start getting comfortable getting close enough? Because obviously you're doing very close up detailed photos, macro photos, you have to get close enough. How do you get comfortable getting up close with insects like that?
Yeah, I think I started off being someone who would scream if there was a spider anywhere nearby. I was a bug person, but I'll love them at a distance. But then I started working at Australia Zoo, and that was real exposure therapy to all types of animals, up and down, large, small. And that was when I realized it's a very bushland place. You're outdoors all day. So you do get huntsmen walking into the printer's office, or you might have even a snake run past you and you're like, oh, let's avoid that. And it just, over time, I got more and more comfortable with them, to the point now, if I go out into the backyard, there's a couple jumping spiders that'll just jump onto my fingers because they know by routine that I come there at that time, and often with my camera, and they just get curious and get to wander more and more.
What would you suggest people start taking photos of if they wanted to get into photographing insects? What's a good one to start with?
Yeah, I'd say florals, flowers. Personally, I feel like I can't take photos of flowers. I'm like, there needs to be a bug. Give me, put something on there. But that kind of teaches you, because I don't do manual, I do everything in manual, sorry. And that means that if it's windy, you're having to rock with the wind. And if the plant's going one way, you're also going with it, because you have to try and sync it up to keep it in focus. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is trying to just memorize the focusing ring and realize, okay, a little bit that way. And if you practice your settings, because of that problem solving, you see it and you're quick at it. You only have a couple of seconds before they run away. It's getting familiar with your settings, but also, I say that you don't have to be in a full manual mode, manual focus. You don't have to be. For me, that's my personal stylistic choice. But other people get great shots, and it saves a lot of time too. So,
is there any particular reason why you use fully a manual? And you were also saying before you use all natural light. Any reason why you do that? Because I would be if I was going to take photos of insects, I'd be using flash. I don't know. Explain that for us.
Yeah, no, totally. It's just been a choice from the very day I started. I think growing up with film being all around me, I thought, that's just pure form. And adding anything else made me just sort of get overwhelmed. It felt like, if I add a flash on top of my camera, it gets a little bit heavier and gets more tiring quicker. Adding a big diffuser, I do have, and I'll use it if I'm doing night shoots or anything, if it's not pure sunlight day. And I just found that though during the day inhibited my creative process, because something that I really loved was that problem solving of I have the light source coming in this one direction and maybe it's reflecting off this leaf here and it's giving this color. And that's just how my brain developed over the years of being able to problem solve in that way. And then now, if I add to it, I just get almost overwhelmed of, I think, I get stuck on the lighting and not the enjoyment of, oh, this is the bug and it's doing this or that's the behavior. And that's more of the side that I find enjoyable, and then being able to capture that with my camera alongside.
I'm so glad you outlined that, because I think that for a lot of people, like myself included, I'm completely the other way, where I have an idea in my head and I'm like, I know what I want to create. Now, how can I create it? So I'm like, if I need a flash here, I'm going to put one light here. I'm going to put people to stand like this and look this way. It's very orchestrated, right? So like that's the way that I have these ideas in my head, and I'm like, this is what I want to execute on. Other people can't see like that. Other people are like, I just need to go out and work in the environment. To me, that stresses me. I'm like, you aren't in control at all. But that allows you to be more creative in that sense, because it is so far out of your control, and not having to change so many things allows you to just focus on what's happening in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like I've shot a couple weddings, even I've gone out of my bug zone and I've done a couple weddings, a couple people shoots here and there. And that was like weddings in particular. I'm like, oh, I can, just shoot wherever, because that's how my brain works. I'm like, oh, just do something candid. I'll shoot around you guys. And that's how I worked with weddings, which I think would be quite different to how you would do it. But yeah, no, just different skills, and you still get to have different results, but it's you as a creative, it's different processes for everyone.
Exactly. I find it so hard with like the internet these days, and people being like, you have to do things this way or you have to do it that way. It's like, well, at the end of the day, like we're all artists and we can do what we want, and whatever works for you, whatever feels comfortable for you, it works for you, right? Like I'm sure you could go out at other hours of the day. If you don't like going out at sunrise, then don't go out at sunrise. Like find a way to work around that. Like in the afternoon is probably still fine, but you're not going to have the same types of images. Just be okay with that. But you can still find a way to make it work, and don't feel like you have to do things the same way that other people do them. I think it's a big flaw, and it does hold a lot of people back. I'd love to go back to, your award from before. What sort of changed after that? Because I think there's this big thing in the industry of like, we don't need to get any awards. I've always been like that, because I feel like I don't have any awards, so I'm just going to be like, I don't need awards. I'm an artist in my own right. But there's obviously some advantages, right, to being able to win these awards and being able to enter these things and even be in that space, like you talked about before, being able to go along to, and like meet the other finalists of those awards would then just put you in those spaces. And I think that's huge as well. I'd love you to sort of touch on what sort of come out of it in the next 2 years, because you said you're only just like realizing that it all happened. Or what have been some of those big changes, or what came from actually winning that award?
Yeah, I think I always have like your goals, your lifetime bucket list that you want to do. And with photography, it was like, oh, it'd be really cool to have an award. And secondly, be sponsored by a camera company. Those were like my two, like, okay, great. If we get there, we're solid. And after OzGeo, I kind of realized I got to meet all these amazing photographers in the competition. And I was like, wow, how I want to be like them one day. I think I had turned 18 once the exhibition opened up, and I was like, okay, I'm starting university. I've got so many choices. I'm still working at the zoo as a photographer, so that's a dream job. But, I feel like I want to focus on my photography a little bit more. I want to be able to educate people, and I think one of the key moments from those competitions was sitting in the exhibition room and looking at my photo. I would be a little further back in the room, and I'd just watch people just stop at people's photos, at whether it was mine or some of my friends in the competition, and have them just take the time as an audience member to stop and look and appreciate something that you've taken. That, to me, was one of the most amazing feelings, to know that something you have done has made an impact on someone else's life. Even if it's for a short 2 seconds as they're stopped walking across, or they just glance over, it's such an incredible feeling. And I remember thinking, one day I want to make a difference with my photography. I want to see if people can, in this busy world that we live in with the digital, and we're often inside or in our offices, I wanted to be able to bring a little bit of outside to our digital world. And so some people don't have time to take hours of their morning to go look at bugs, which is fair enough. Don't blame you. And I wanted to be able to show people what I see and what I get to view, and give them a little bit of an inkling of what's happening outside and all around them.
I suppose it's just like opening you up to this is able to be a career, I guess, or be able to be something that I do more long term.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When I was starting in photography, I was like, oh, I can't make money off of bugs. They don't contribute to our economy. They don't have wallets. They they don't have any cash. So, how is this going to work? And when I won OzGeo, I realized, maybe there is a future in this. Is it just entering competitions and seeing if you get the prize money, or is it with camera brands? Or I didn't really know at the time. I was just kind of like, okay, let's give this a go. And I decided from that competition to go full steam ahead. I started studying a double degree in design and animal ecology, design focusing on the photography side of things, so then I could bring education in a visual media form, so people can understand a little bit more of the science of what is happening and what is going on, and in particular of bugs and insects, that there's been roughly a 41% decline in all bug species, and that's just happening rapidly around us, and they're bugs, so everyone kind of brushes it off. And I was like, okay, I want to be on a mission to be able to share these cool, awesome creatures that we otherwise wouldn't even take the time to notice. Even being able to build a relationship with a jumping spider on a particular tree outside, it's crazy to think that you can train, you can build that. They have responses. Yes, not as humans, they're not like you and I, for sure, but they have so much of an impact on even our economy, actually, with agriculture, and they have such a important role ecologically for us that we do depend on them, but we don't even notice that they're decaying and declining so quickly. Like, we used to see Christmas beetles here in Australia all the time. That was like, oh, there's a Christmas beetle, easy. But we don't see them very often anymore, and they've just slowly declined without us really noticing.
Yeah, and it's such an important thing to be able to document that as well over time, and like observe, but also document and have those images, because you never know when the next species could go extinct. And it's unfortunate, but you being able to be there and actually have these images that might not mean something to anyone right now, but you never know what they'll mean in the future.
Yeah, it's a tool to be able to capture the moment in history today, which again might be important in the future, but it's an awesome tool that in this digital world that we have access to not necessarily nature, but we do get to see it on our phones daily. So if you are stuck in an office or you inside a lot, that's okay. You can still see all the creation that's around you. And I thought that was always been a pure passion of mine to keep following.
You've obviously always been invested in animals, the outside world. You said you started working at Australia Zoo. How far back has your love for wildlife and nature gone?
Yeah, I think my mum would always describe me as always an outdoor kid, getting into trouble or not coming home because I wanted to sleep outside, or I would bring stink bugs inside the house, which was not very appreciated by my parents at the time. But I've always sort of had this mindset of being able to coexist. If there's a spider, I won't kill it. I'll take it outside. There's, ways that we can live around wildlife. And I think this has just been so ingrained in my brain that now that I'm being able to take photos of it and share that through photography is such a powerful tool that so many people these days do. And we have cameras on our phones at our fingertips always. So you don't just need a professional camera with a big lens to be able to capture these things. You can just use your phone and appreciate them from there.
How did you first get into photography? What was it that drew you to photography?
I had heard of this photography competition at Australia Zoo that I wasn't working there at the time, and I was like, I wonder. But I grew up with my mum being a photojournalist, and so I was like, I don't want to be anything like my mother. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm never going to touch a camera. I'll be an astronaut or something along those lines. And it was, funnily enough, I was doing some sort of NASA internship just as like a teenager out in the middle of Australia. And the fascination with the stars, because you can look up and there are hundreds and thousands and billions of stars just speckled all around it. You can't count them. But yet, every time you go outside and look at the stars, you don't really know what you'll see. You might see a shooting star, if you're really lucky or not so lucky, there's a supernova out there. There's so many things of this unpredictability feeling that I was so intrigued about as well. And that when I saw this photography competition, it was kind of all these three things come together. Well, my mum has an old Nikon D300 and a 105mm lens. I'll pick it up. I'll see if I can take any photos with it. And I took about 3 photos that day, and we did them all at once. And I entered them into the competition, and I found out about 2 or 3 months later that I had been a finalist in the zoo's competition. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. I guess this is something that I should keep on doing. And my mum and I had a bit of a competition, friendly competition between us, because she was a photographer. I think she was exhibited in one of the National Victorian galleries when she was in her 20s. And so when I was a finalist in this competition, one of the prizes was being exhibited in the Queensland Museum. And so I now hold it over her that I exhibited at a younger age than her by about 10 years. But no, my mum was a big inspiration for me. And it all started with Nikon, which is a really cool full circle now.
Absolutely. You were saying before that was one of your sort of big goals to win an award and become sponsored by a camera company. What did that feel like when you first were able to work with Nikon?
Yeah, I think over the last 4 or 5 years, it's just been a very on and off, oh, hey, can we repost this, whatever. Very, very oh my goodness, Nikon's messaging me, so cool. I remember when they followed me, I was so excited. And that just sort of, the relationship builds and it develops. And I'd always said to myself, one day I'll make it when I get sponsored by a company. And I was in Taiwan earlier this year, and I was on a 17-hour layover. I was so tired. I'd come from Texas. I'd flown into Australia for 24 hours, and then I was up in Taiwan for another day. I was so tired, and I opened my emails. I was like, oh, I've got 17 hours to kill, do some work. And I got this email from Nikon, and I was like, oh, you want to have a mysterious meeting with me? Okay. I'm currently in the other side of the world. Give me a couple of days. And when I found out that they wanted me as one of their creators, it was, I think, 4:30 in the morning in Germany, and I had sat on this Zoom meeting, and they didn't see it, but after the Zoom finished, I was so happy. There were happy tears coming, and I was like, wait, what do I do now? I was 20, well, I am 20, and that's when I heard, and I was like, hang on a minute, I was speechless. And I think from when I came back from Australia, that's when you and I first met at FrameFest. It was suddenly I've just been announced as a creator, and at this festival with all of these photographers that I've looked up to for years and Nikon creators, and suddenly I'm in a circle with them and they're all giving me advice, and I'm like, how have I ended up here? What on earth happened for me to be in this moment? And everyone has been so supporting and so nice and welcoming. I was not expecting such a good community to be found here.
Why were you not expecting such a good community to be found there? I'm interested by that.
Yeah, I think because it feels like such a competitive field where it is so oversaturated that, people just have to, go over each other to get somewhere. And there's so much bad news that people hear all the time. And when I walked into this circle of people, and I was like, wait, you're all giving advice and wanting to help and support. And that whole Frame Fest was just day after day, everyone was looking to build their knowledge and just get to know each other, make connections, build success together, not individually. It was just this big team meeting, it felt like. So that was such a good intro into being a creator from there on out.
Yeah, I asked that question because I feel like I was the exact same way when I first came into it. I was like, didn't expect other people to be so open. And I think like you meet anyone in any photography space, and everybody I think is so open and happy to help no matter what stage they're at, because they understand that they started there as well. But there's this big thing of like online being so much like negativity thrown around by people who just aren't in those spaces. But you think that when you go, that's going to be what it's like in person as well. But the types of people that are in those spaces that are comfortable to put themselves out there and be around other people aren't people that are trying to hold back or not trying to be in competition with others. They've gotten there because of everyone else, and so they're happy to give back to that community. And I think it's amazing when people find community. That's why I tell people, like, when you're starting, find other people around you who are at your stage and work together and like work up, because it can be such an isolating career, especially with the work that you do. Like, you work on your own, right? Like I at least get to work with other humans. You work by yourself most of the time. So being able to find other people, I'm sure, was an amazing help early on, and still to this day, like still with growth and other opportunities.
One of the big things was finding my place at the zoo, surrounded by animal people and photographers. There was this team of my dream person of, oh my goodness, we're all photographers, we all love animals, this is great. And I think from there on out, it just built and built and built. And being social media focused, it also means that you are alone as well a lot of the time. And it's kind of building connections. Yes, you can communicate and talk, but it's so lonely in a way that you do have to have those connections outside to really kind of build you up and keep you grounded too, and just kind of be like, hey, maybe try, there's this park across the road, there's this animal here, or, people to share that experience with, I think has just kept me going for so long now.
Absolutely. I definitely wouldn't be where I am without the support of other people having tried things before me, so that I don't have to try them and work out that also doesn't work, or like just being able to get advice from people about things that have worked for them that'll probably work for me, and opportunities as well. Like I'm much more likely to refer someone that I've spoken to in person than anyone else, and so that's always really cool. Have you had any really cool opportunities that have come out of being in those spaces?
Yeah, I think being able to study, this is going to sound a little bit lame and a bit nerdy, but being able to study what I love and having that just be the borderline of like, wow, okay, I can merge the two of working with Nikon, but also using that as my assignments. To me, that has been like melding two worlds at one and study what I'm just doing as a job outside. But even like being able to have the flexibility then to travel to bucket list locations and countries to see certain species to take photos of has also been something that I've never would have thought I'd have the opportunity to do and capture that and share that with people around me.
How do you balance like studying, working, being a photographer, all these different things? Like it seems so much, and at your age as well, like that is so much on your plate that I can't even like imagine handling that. Have you been able to strike that balance, like being overseas as well, like going traveling like that? I wouldn't be able to do all those things. How do you do it? I'm just very curious.
Most of last year, I was living in Scotland and I was doing a humanitarian work project over there. And turning anything that I love, the cliche saying of do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I live by that full steam ahead. There's no other way about it. But, in the world that we live in, I do also work almost a full-time job. Plus, I study full-time and have friends outside of that to see and catch up on and nick on and do my own photography things. There's so many avenues that I'm trying to work to keep together, which can be at times really tiring. And I know that like I set days for myself sometimes. If I get the opportunity, I might say, if they've asked me, hey, do you want to come in on this day? I'm like, nope, I'm using that as a rest day today. That's for me, just take a break, relax, watch a movie, just don't stress about anything. But I'm also someone who, if you ask any of my friends, I think they think I'm slightly insane because I can't really rest. I'm always thinking about this to-do list, or I need to do this for this person, or I've got this portfolio to set up, or these photos to send off. And I think there's just having that busyness. I've been burnt out before, so I know that there is a limit to how much I can push myself, but I know that traveling inspires me even more. So it's to be able to do photography, it doesn't really feel like a job because I do love it to bits. It's a way that I even recharge my battery. So yes, I am technically busy. If you look at my calendar, you're like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? But it's something that I love, so it doesn't feel like I'm working all the time, which is, I think, such a blessing.
I think for people who aren't creative people, they really struggle with how much work creative people do. Like in my spare time, I still do work, but it's not work because it's the thing that I enjoy as a hobby, but it's also work. And so like it's a bit of a spiral, but other people don't understand that to me it's not work, it's what I enjoy anyway. Like I would go out and do those things in my spare time regardless. So why would I stop and go do something I don't enjoy just to take a break from the stuff that I do? And it's always been a confusing thing to try to explain to people, especially like as we head into the holiday period. Like the idea of having a break to me is like, oh, I don't want to. Like I enjoy what I do. Like I don't want to have to stop and go away and do other things that I don't like. What gear are you using at the moment for anyone that's interested?
Yeah. So I've just started using the Z5 II, which has been, I was previously using the Z7 and got offered the Z5 II, and I was like, this is amazing. It's a little bit lighter. I can sort of run around with it. And I've got the first lens that I ever started on, which was 105mm, which I think that's literally how I see the world now. It's, if you give me any sort of other macro lens, I'm like, what? No, this isn't right. Hang on. And so I've got the Z mount with the 105mm, which has just been my bread and butter, and I love it to bits.
Explain the difference between the 105mm macro versus the 50mm macro. I'm not in that space. I don't know. Why choose one over the other?
Yeah, no, and Nikon even just released the 35mm, which I got to help on like the launch with that, which was so cool. And I think you can get more of the image with a wider angle, but with 105mm you still get that intimacy. And it's the 105 you can even use for portraits. Same with that 50mm, but that 105, it gives you that depth of field and the intimacy of having them just full frame right in front of you. There's the environment sort of is around them, and it gives you that picture and detail of where they are and what their behavior is with it. But it also means that you're just one-on-one. There's nothing else distracting. It is this beautiful, crisp image of your subject. Having that macro lens means, for example, the new 35mm has got super close focusing distance, whereas my 105mm is, I think, about 30 centimeters. And it depends even what you're shooting or what you want to shoot. If you're shooting flowers or floral things, then that close focusing distance might actually work really well for you. Personally, I prefer having a little bit longer, so then when you get closer with your bugs and with your subjects, you don't scare them off so much, because that is, again, we were talking about if you're this big giant coming up over you trying to take a photo, you're a little bit scary. Fair enough. So having that distance in that particular lens, I love that. You can get close enough to fill and keep all the detail, but you're not close enough to scare them off usually.
Have you tried any other cool creative lenses before that you really enjoyed, or do you normally just stick with the exact same gear every time?
I would love, like, one of my bucket list lenses is a really wide angle macro, so I can get super close but get so much context and environmental sort of detail there, and just have the very vast contrast between intimate, up close, personal, kind of like a portrait shot, and then also have the entire environment and where they are surrounding them within the photo. I think that's like my dream setup, to have one camera with a wide angle, one camera with 105, and I'm good to go.
Just go between those two. That'd be really cool fun.
Yeah, totally.
Are there any insects that you'd love to take photos of that you haven't been able to yet?
Oh, that's a terribly good question. I think I have my dream is to have a photo book of identifying all the different types, and even just a kid's educational book, because then they can say I've taken this photo of this bug and this photo of that bug. It's not necessarily one bug that's on my bucket list, but different, having the collection of all the different species in this genus or family or whatever, to be able to then refer it in the future.
Is the idea of the book, I'm really curious by that, and I think that's a really cool idea. Is that a way that you've come to of how you can sustain yourself as a photographer doing insect work? Because like we were talking about before, what is the audience for these types of images, and is that the path you'd eventually like to go down?
Yeah, I've always probably been a terrible business person, because yeah, we don't care about the money. We're doing what we love. It's great. And then you're like, oh wait, if I want to do this, I have to live off of it. And again, bugs don't have wallets. They can't hand over cash to me just for taking their photos. And so yeah, books has been sort of one avenue that I've thought about, and then I'm like, maybe I start just sort of project researching and seeing if I can go into there. But even like prints and things like that, classic things that us photographers would sell, has never felt, I've done a couple prints and canvases if people have asked for them, but I don't necessarily go out of my way to promote them because it's this form of, I feel like I wouldn't put a bug photo up on my wall. It's a very niche part of the world that would do so. And I think I'm personally still trying to find that balance of what I do want to share and what I don't, and in the methodology of how I actually want to share it.
How do you get that work out to that audience that does want that sort of stuff? Because I've always said there's an audience for everything, right? They're out there. There might be those strange people that want images of like big like spiders on their wall. How do you get your work in front of those people?
And you can't protect something that you don't love. And so having that educational awareness of starting just emotionally is where I think I want to begin and sort of build from there. But even, there's different avenues for workshops that I've been like, maybe we do a workshop here or a workshop there.
And we don't even know what those avenues are, right? Like I hate getting asked the question of what do you plan to do in the next 5 years? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know I'd be here 5 years ago. So like even planning, like you said, I'm sure like by the time you end your degree, you'll have brand new ideas of things and ways that you can go about it. But just how important is it to just be open to new opportunities and like say yes to things when they do come along, because you never know where that could lead you 3 or 4 years down the track.
I never even imagined myself to be, again, sponsored by a camera company. That was when I started university about 3 years ago. I was like, that's not going to happen until I'm maybe 40 or something way off in the future. But it's the little relationships that you build, and even the opportunities. Like I had an opportunity at the start of the year to go film with Steve Backshall, who's the presenter of Deadly 60, which is something that I grew up in. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the coolest thing in the world. And it's things like that that just keep your like inner child constantly excited to just keep going. And I've always said that you never really know, but just keep opening doors that come through. Another door might close, but another one will immediately open for you to follow. And just say yes to a lot of things that, morally agree with. And you're like, all right, let's do it.
And how do you keep yourself so excited for those opportunities? You spoke about burnout before, and you've experienced that already, and trying to not push yourself too far. How was that experience? But then how do you prevent that in the future and keep yourself so excited that you can take on new opportunities when they come?
Yeah, I think I'm still riding the high with Nikon at the moment. I'm just like, okay, that's like fuel enough for me. I'll just think about it. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. But being able to see like the moments, go back to the moments where I'm sat in the exhibition room. And when I'm at like my most burnt out point in time, I'm like, oh, I should just give this up. I'll just be a scientist, or I will be a receptionist for the rest of my life. Like that's easier. That takes less brain power to do, and it'd be so much simpler. But I remember people stopping and taking their time to look at my photo and seeing their reaction, seeing them read the little description and just take time out of their life to view something that I took. That is to have an impact is one of the main things that I think keeps me going, and knowing that this is bigger than just us and you and me. There's all these different things that are happening around us that we necessarily can't fix, or ultimately, Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time, and it takes a team, that you can't just do it by yourself. You need people around you. And I think those are key things to always know, that it's not just yourself in it, doing it alone. There are people in the same position as you or in the same field or have that same mission, might be in a different passion, but they have that same mission to make an impact, and you can work together and build it together.
And you've spoken openly before about being a Christian. I'd love to understand a little bit more about how your faith as well impacts your work and how that informs the way that you go about your art.
Yeah, I think it's a very big foundation for where I go and how I do it. And I think that's also a very big inspiration for me to know that it is bigger than just myself. And I always say that the camera, it's not just me and the camera, it's an extension of me. The camera isn't just this extra entity. It's this part of me that is a way that I can have a connection between what I see and what nature is in creation and be able to share that with people. It's like this little middle ground where everything connects and comes together and is shown through a camera. And that's something that we all have access to nowadays that we can share and capture together.
Yeah, it's beautiful to be able to document things and see things that are just more than you. Like, understand it's not really, at the end of the day, it's not all about us. Like, we won't be here in 100 years' time, but these things will continue on. And these experiences that you're having every single day when you're out there on a hike, these have been happening for years. And it's kind of weird to think about that this has just been the way it's always been.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just get to live here, and part of what I feel my purpose is to be able to just capture that and share that with people and educate, because there is so much negativity and sadness happening, and even in the field of entomology and bugs is huge declines that we don't really know the reason why, and not many people spend much time about it. And so being able to be this communication field and pass information along to both sides of science and your average everyday person, everyone has their job and their place and their purpose. And, I feel like that's sort of mine. And although I'm only 20 and I've still got a lot to learn and a lot to go and to figure it out, it's nice to have a foundation to know this is where I want to build from and see what doors open from there on out.
Absolutely. It's amazing to hear someone who is so young, who is really inspired and really wants to actually be able to create that change and open up other people's eyes to be able to see things that are happening in the world, because I think that's so important. And I hope you're able to keep that spark burning, I guess, because it's like so important to stay inspired in these careers. And we can see so many people losing themselves to that like negativity that is out there, but you've just got to stay on track and understand what it is and why you first started. I think is so important to always be looking back and remembering, in those hard times, why you started and why you're continuing on to do this thing.
And it's things like this of being able to talk one-on-one and share each other's stories that you do get insights and you do learn from the people around you to then continue to build you up.
Have you got any stories or any extra insights that you could give to anyone else out there wanting to start some interesting things that you've kind of learnt that can help them if they're struggling and they don't, have a community around them, or they don't have anyone that they could draw from? Have you got anything that you would like to give to those people?
Yeah, I think when I was at my worst and, I don't want to go outside, I don't want to pick up a camera, this is all too overwhelming, I need a break. And my friends would probably call me a people pleaser, so if anyone asks anything, I'd say yes, even at the expense of myself. And over the years, I've learnt that, you do need to take a day off, to set yourself nothing to do, even if you really want to do something. Just take a break and separate sometimes yourself from your work, because it can get so overwhelming and messy in your head where you can't find that divide between you and your work. And so I've really found that because I've got so many different, uni and work and photography with Nikon, my friends, even like my boyfriend, trying to balance it all. it can get overwhelming. And especially I'm an introvert, so I recharge all by myself. Leave me in a room, I'll be fine. You just need to set yourself that time to develop yourself away from your craft even, and understand that that is a part of getting better at your craft. You need to first be your best to then give your best.
What are the ways that you do recharge or draw inspiration or creativity away from your craft?
Yeah, traveling is a big one that can be stressful, but knowing and seeing so many different perspectives and cultures and how people live is something that fuels me to then take back into my photography and have a different way of how I see something. But even like if we're talking on a day-to-day level, leave me in a room, I'll watch my Netflix, chill out for a couple of hours, watch a good movie. But I love in that though, the documentaries, like your classic David Attenborough, anything nature, and I'm all over it. But that is a dream one day to be able to share that. They're doing exactly what I'd love to do in the future, of having people take their time out of the day to watch their documentaries and their movies, and all the cinematographers that have gone into the creation of a lot of those documentaries we just watch into in a couple of hours. Hours and hours and hours go into it, and so many people and dedication, and they get to share that cool part of creation with the people in the audience that get to watch it.
Well, I dare say we'll see you there in a few years' time, Isabella, I'm sure. And if not, we'd love to see your photo book out in the real world. I'm sure that would be something that a lot of people would get a lot from. This has been a lovely conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the people, or even are there any entomological hacks that you'd like to give people to think about at the end of this episode? Some like a message that you'd like to get out there to the world while they're here?
I think that the amount of insects, that really tangible example of Christmas beetles disappearing so quickly. We live in such a busy world that we often think that we can't stop because we might, wear a watch and it's a smartwatch, so we're constantly getting notifications wherever we go, even if our phone's not on us. And I think one of the most grounding things that I have found is disconnecting sometimes. Just stepping away, and even, I leave my camera inside and I'll just step outside and take a minute, even if I'm in a really busy day and I'm about to go to work, or I've got appointments or meetings or deadlines to do. Even just a minute outside can change the whole rest of my day to something more positive and refocus myself into a more grounded sort of point of view.
This has been amazing, Isabella, and we'll leave all the links to all your stuff down below and your beautiful art. We'll be down there if people want to go and check it out. If they do want to get a framed image of a spider hung on their wall, I'm sure they could do that through your website.
Absolutely. No, this has been amazing. And again, I never thought I would even be here. So it's, you say yes to anything and you never know what'll happen.
That's right. Just keep saying yes, and you never know what opportunities will come. That's always been the way that I've approached things too. So that's amazing. And that's the end of today's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, there'll be another episode linked up here or down below the like button. And while you're down there, why don't you leave me a comment to let me know that you are here? And I'd love to hear what you took away from this episode. If you're listening to the audio version as well on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave me a rating or review. It does really help to get the show out to a new audience of people just like yourself who would also be super motivated by these episodes. As we tell stories of creative people, I want to pay my respects to the first creatives of the land on which I'm recording this podcast, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of so-called Australia. Editing and post-production on this episode was done by Mossy Heart Media, and music by JW Payton.